بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا. The chapter that we completed, which was the very famous chapter of Mishkat, is known as Kitabur Riqaq, the book of those ahadith which each hadith itself is sufficient to melt a person's heart. So the tartib of Mishkat is after Kitabur Riqaq now comes what is called Kitabul Fitan, the book of fitna, trials, tribulations, things that are going to happen, things that you're going to see. In between there was that few babs which was called Bab At-Tahdhir Min Al-Fitan, the warning of fitna. That was also joined to Kitabur Riqaq. The reason is fitna is such a thing that for some people the word fitna is like an exciting thing. When you say give a bayan about fitna, so they just think about wars and the Mahdi, Dajjal. So it's exciting, they'll all come for the bayan. But no one will wake up for Fajr. Because it was just the excitement of what is this fitna. For some people, they're just oblivious to fitna. It's like a joke. Some are very scared about fitna, that I don't want to see fitna. So it was a unique tartib that he brought it after Kitabur Riqaq. That it's only that person whose heart has already broken, or whose heart has become soft, he will be able to see fitna in the light which he's supposed to see fitna. Fitna is not something that you run away from. Neither is fitna something you fall into. Fitna is something that has to be understood. Why did Allah make it? Why did Allah allow it? In itself is no good in fitna. But it has a purpose which is very good. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. The surah starts, Al-Ankabut, Alif Lam Mim Ahasib an-nasu ay yutraku ay yaqulu amanna wa hum la yuftanun. Do the people really think that just after they say we believe in Allah, then there won't be fitna? So it shows fitna is a shi'ar of iman. That where there's iman, there has to be fitna. وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. We had put the people before them also in fitna. Meaning we had tested them. One meaning of fitna is when you put that gold which has a lot of dirt, you put it in the fire, and the fire starts burning. So gold itself doesn't burn. It can melt, but it will remain gold. But the dirt separates from the gold. That is fitna. وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. It is with fitna that the truthful are separated from the liars. Otherwise everyone has said we believe. And in this chapter of Kitabul Fitan you will see those narrations. That with the two groups, they will show themselves clearly. That you can't be hidden. One's heart will be like clean, there will be no dot of nifaq on it. And the other one's heart will be black, there will be no iman in it. Fitna will show. Sidq and kizb is tested with fitna. Now you understand the meaning of fitna. Say al-ikhtiyar bil-baliyah. That an imtihan that is taken with some great difficulty is called fitna. Al-ikhtiyar bil-baliyah. An imtihan that is taken, like how you all wrote an imtihan. So no matter how difficult it was, you won't call this imtihan fitna. Because it wasn't taken with some great musibat. An imtihan that is taken with something that makes man bleed, that is called fitna. And if a person's heart has already become soft, and that's why Kitabur Riqaq was needed, then he uses this fitna to prove his sidq to Allah. That I am truthful. And if a person's heart was not broken, if that heart was not made, then that very fitna becomes his trap. He loses his knowledge in that fitna, he loses his haya in that fitna, he loses everything in that fitna. He can be the mufti of the era, but he fell flat in the fitna. So you will say, فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That it was when fitna comes. So how you're in your imtihan, all that they could test was who is understanding his work and who's just riding on the train. But even in the imtihan guy, if you want to cheat, you could cheat. And sometimes you just spot the right thing in the imtihan, that one came out and you got a top mark. And you knew that, if you asked me on the other page, I was gone. But by Almighty Allah, fitna is not like that. By Allah, there's no spotting. That today, if I look away from that girl, hey, lucky I looked away because my wife was checking. So I'm truthful. By Allah, it's nothing like that. By Allah, it is your truthfulness will be shown, your lie will be shown. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. This is Kitabul Fitan. The first hadith of this chapter, which shows to what extent the fitna was described. And as we will do these chapters, then you will look for the fitna that we're going through. In what is known as the age of the Industrial Revolution, the age of technology, the burst of technology. At one time when we were small, they used to call it the 20th century. Now already it's gone into a new word. 2030 is a big word. But at that time, as the 1900s were coming, the world changed in a very unique manner. When we went to Kimberley now, so one place that you can visit in Kimberley, everyone goes to see one place in Kimberley called the Big Hole. So due to some reasons, I couldn't go to the hole. So something to see, but a hole, a huge hole. And why we look at it is to see not the hole, but the amount of evil that landed in Kimberley to establish that hole. So those families that came to Kimberley were not small families in the shaitani world. There's a family that in South Africa was known as De Beers. So no one really knows De Beers. You'll know Rhodes. You'll even see his statue there on his horse. So when you see him, you see the devil on a horse. He was the devil. This Rhodes, this De Beers, they were all what we call Rothschild. The Rothschild family, they all part of the Rothschild family. Married in the family. Because the surname was never ever Rothschild, people never looked at them as you, the devil himself. So these were the big shayateen that visited South Africa. And the hole that they left showed what they left. So in Kimberley then, we also drove past what is called the Masonic, church or something. Masonic temple. The person even told me that no work ever takes place there. Ever takes place. He said, but his friend told him that there are certain times at night, during the month, where some people do land at the airport and then they come there and they spend there 3-4 hours, what we call tahajjud, they got their tahajjud. And they fly out at night also. I was thinking at that time, they don't sleep. What a time to do it. So the person taking me around, he told me, you'll never see any work happening. It just happened that day I visited it, work was taking place. They were painting that place. So he told me, maybe they knew you coming and they put it up today. They opened it first time. Otherwise the thing is always, but I drove past it just to see I never thought that still activities will be taking place. They got their center. So they're never going to stop. This is Kitabul Fitan. So that one I never saw the whole, but another one I saw, it's called Darul Ajaib. That's one unique thing to go visit Kimberley and see. The house of many ajib things. So Ajaib means what they brought in the museum, things of the past. And you'll only realize how the world changed when you see those things of the past, which was just our past. Meaning when we were small, those were the things. But if you look at it, you'll wonder how it worked. So in there you'll see the old phones, the very old phones, where you'll pick up that there's 2 big balls on either side and you speak to one person and you tell him, he'll say, give me your number, then you give him your number, then he'll dial for you. And he'll connect you. Without him connecting you, the number can't go through. Then you had the next phone that came out, you turn that ring. So you got 1, then you turn it, and it comes back, then you say 2, and turn. So 0, 1, it comes back 1, 4, Everything you have to turn. So one person in his phone, what he did is to dial his number at night. His whole number. And on that last one, as you dial it now, then he has to put his pen there. So because his pen is there now, so he's not going to phone home. It's on that last number. So you just remove that pen and it will go back and he'll ring his house. So why he would do that? He would connect that pen, that line to his door. So if a robber ever entered at night, immediately he'll ring his house. It's that one word. So they said that a lot of robbers he caught. They could never understand it. That's someone. Like how he always knew. Like someone's in your shop. There's that one more ring. Ring, ring. So what a mind he had. That was that zamana. You look at that phone, how that phone worked. So in that zamana, what you all do in class, there was no way you could do it with your phone. And by the time you get through, the period is over already. Just that one. But the world changed. How it changed. That was when we were small, we had those phones. Then they got some accounting books of the past. They had the letters that the people wrote. So because it was the era of apartheid, they were scared that the Afrikaner, whatever he was, he will get some letter. So they wrote the Afrikaans language in Arabic script. So you have to know Afrikaans and you have to know Arabic, then you can read it. So that thing was written about Dukhtur someone or whatever, this daughter was born on this day in a certain place, but in Arabic it's written. So if you know Arabic also, you still can't work out because you need Afrikaans in it. If you need no Afrikaans, you need Arabic. So how in that zamana, they were so scared, but what a mind. They used the Arabic script. And then all the letters, they would prepare it in the Arabic script. So all of those letters are there. Something to see, like, what was that zamana? Then apartheid came. Then some of the things, like when we were small, we had our brown bag. We had a brown bag. If you were in school, it was only that brown bag allowed. In that bag, you put it nothing on your back. It was that brown bag. Kajee still got his brown bag. He never let go of that. That was that brown bag. So we saw that brown bag. The accounting books, they got that where the person with his mind, he used to work out his sums. There was hardly calculators. He used to write, this was the business. Some in Gujarati, some in English, some in Urdu. So the accounting books are there. The different Qurans that went over the different eras. One Quran we saw was that the person wanted to write. So in writing Quran, people had different like shans. One is that one you see in many houses, that the whole Quran is written on that one. So you just see Bismillah and you can't really see the surah. One was someone wanted to write that every line must start with alif. So he worked out that, because in every ayat you do get an alif. But every line must start with the alif, either as-salah, az-zakah, whatever alif, but. So he got his whole Quran. And one is that small Quran that you get, that the whole Quran is in that small. What and what people had, so all that ajaib is there. But what was like for me was amazing, interesting was how the world changed so fast. That in 2020, if you never saw like 1980, 1990, when you will look at a lot of those things, you will say like, in which era was this? Whereas this was just 20 years ago. But you will say, in which era? Like, how they survived. Sewing machines of the past. It was an era where things were strong. Today everything is plastic. So whoever wanted to put anything of old. So there's one person, I think he's a dentist. So the different chairs he had over the years in his practice, he put all those chairs there. I don't know what shan he had, because that was sure. So another person was a barber. So he put his barber chair there. That chair is so heavy that you just try to lift it from the ground. You can't lift it. Such a chair it was. Nowadays, like everything is plastic, but in that time it was made of very strong material. That is there. Then those people who went for Hajj on bicycle, I think their tire is there. Even that, everything is there. Amazing things. Whatever they could bring, they brought it in there. Some things are good, some things are funny things like. So something to go see one day if you visit Kimberley, the clothing of the people of the past. But what I was trying to say is how the world changed. In 20 years, so fast. Kitabul Fitan, and in the world that what we're going to see, the Industrial Revolution. So what was in the Darul Ajaib was like from our era. They haven't got from something before that. But you go to certain museums, then you will go to a little before that, when there was no car. And you wonder how people managed in that era. And you look in those houses, and you wonder how the change took place from an era where there was no electricity at all, and how they moved into something which was called electricity, and they phased into what we call today normal. So this phase is what this fitan is. That if a person's eye doesn't pick up the move, so quickly a person moves into a different stage of life, that down the line when someone asks him, what happened to you? That once upon a time you were so good. This is called fitan. How we moved into, and today with everything, when someone asks, but is this normal? You say, yeah, it's normal. It is normal that I can speak to someone in another part of the world, and I never thought about it. It's supposed to be that. And when you tell him once upon a time no one could speak, you say, how they managed? That was normal. We became abnormal. But when it moves in a phase, that first your mind gets prepared because of the news or because of television, so you're already waiting for the abnormal. And then when they bring it in such a manner that the old generation is killed, or they're silenced. So if anyone has to say you can't do this, that person doesn't exist. And when the younger generation, he will ask that, but how come you can't do this? So what will be a fitna for you people? Will be, you all will see an era where what we used to regard before as immodest will no longer be for you immodest. This will be normal. Once there was a time where a girl walked out of the house without her scarf on. And it was a raw even in the Christian world. But they took a phase through plays, and then it became normal that a woman mustn't wear scarf. So we grew up in that era, that not wearing scarf was normal, but wearing clothing at least was demanded. Then the time came where the clothing was coming out, but only on the beaches, and only non-Muslim women. A Muslim woman, even the aunties will say, hey, look at her. How can she dress? No trousers she got. That zamana we saw at least. So that was still abnormal. Many things have changed because of university. Because of university, for many girls not to wear trousers now is normal. And how in the past the white woman would dress on the beach, now many Muslim women are dressing on the beach. So when you will see fitna, you will now see that our abnormal for you will become normal. But in your normal, there's hardly anything left, because there's hardly any clothing left now. So your normal or your abnormal will be like that little will become zero. They say, what you did? Meaning no clothing. It's not going to be an easy imtihan then. Because the person whose eye is tested, once upon a time was tested just because she took out a scarf and he said, hey, look at the beautiful hair. And then somebody else was tested, he said, hey, look at her leg. You will be tested where everything will be shown. And at that time to say, don't look. And it's not the end then. In this new era, and they're phasing it so fast, homosexuality and lesbianism is like now part of the norm. So many scholars of deen also will be tested in this. That you will find yourself attracted to boys, and appas will find themselves attracted to girls. So this is called fitna. Is fitna bad? Fitna is وَلَقَدْ وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. That word fitna, Allah will test the truthful from the liar. So we're not going to be scared of the fitna. But we are going to understand that fitna got a purpose. And the purpose is, my Allah wants to see, am I truthful? So it makes no difference whether his test was with hair, or our test was with legs, and your test might be with the entire naked body. The test is there. And in every era, that test was regarded as the worst test. So in your era, that will be the worst, but it's not like yours is harder than the person of the past. In his, that was the worst. You grow up in an era where Allah gives strength also, and the fitna becomes hard. So in the light of sunnah, you will see one thing which will allow you to, when you see a fitna, it must not be, you must just take it that this is normal. But you must take it that this is the test of truthfulness, where the liar shines and the truthful shines. I don't want to be a liar. Meaning I studied, I became an alim, I came out first in class, I read the best qiraat. But all of that doesn't mean I'm truthful. Truthful means when I go in the Maidan. Because if I'm a man of knowledge, then the angels will say, you are the biggest of liars. If I'm the one giving the bayan, and I'm falling in front of the internet, then the angel will say, we haven't seen a bigger liar than you. One is the man who never know, and he said, I never know. One is the man who knew, but at the time of the imtihan, he just acted like he never knew. So he will be called, you a kadhib. You even knew the answer. One is the boy who wrote the wrong, and he knew it, never knew it was wrong. One is the one who knew what was right, and still he wrote the wrong answer. The teacher won't tell him you failed, he said you a liar. But what you knew, you never wrote. This is وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. So as we will do this chapter, Kitabul Fitan, as you will hear every hadith, mine and your dua must be that Allah make us from the truthful. Because fitna makes gold separate from dirt. It's not going to be easy. As we go into what is called now, it's no longer the burst of technology and the industrial revolution. Now it is called 5G. And 5G is not a small word, it's a very big word, it's a new boom. 2030 is a boom for the world. Things will change how it changed, but that time it changed over a period. So maybe from 1940, it phased itself so slowly, that the person who was alive in 1940, when he reached 2020, you ask him how was things when you were young? He will say, we came by the ship, it was World War. But because it went so slowly, over years, he himself phased in. It took him a while to learn how to use the phone, but from 2020 to 2030, what is called your era, you will see changes happening so fast in the world that you yourself will find it hard to keep up. Because in 10 years for everything to happen, you will notice the change. That's why this COVID, some don't want to see it. Some want to say, no, it's nothing. Some will say it's just a sickness. Some will say there's no conspiracy behind it. Everyone will say something. But at least everyone is saying something happened. That how the world last year was, it was not after that. The madrasas had to change, laws had to change, governments had to change. Vaccinations will come out, laws will come out. You will see it. And while you are looking at it, if you look a little deeper, and that's why we will discuss these chapters, that through the barakah of the sunnah, it allowed the people that when something new had to happen, and this is the first hadith of this chapter, Huzaifa radiallahu anh says, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam stood amongst us maqaman, such a standing, ma taraka fi maqamihi dhalika, that in that standing of his, he did not leave ma yakunu ila qiyam as-sa'a, events that will happen till the final hour, illa haddasa bihi, except that he made bayan of those events. Now what and what he must have spoken about during that one lecture. Some narrations speak about the lecture started after the Fajr. It went till Zohar. Then he performed the Zohar. Then it went till Asr. He performed the Asr. It went till Maghrib. There was an entire day where he was speaking about, and this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. But can you ever remember and encompass all of that? Impossible. So he says, حَفِظَهُ مَنْ حَفِظَ نَسِيَهُ مَنْ نَسِيَ. Whoever remembered, remembered. Whoever forgot, forgot. He said, قَدْ عَلِمَهُ أَصْحَابِ هَؤُلَاء. My companions know about what I'm speaking about. Then he said, something happens in life. قَدْ نَسِيتُهُ فَأَرَاهُ فَأَذْكُرَهُ. He says, then something happens which I forgot was even mentioned in that bayan. But as soon as I see it, I say, this was mentioned. He says, just like how a man whose face you saw, and when he goes away from you, you forget him. But when he comes back, you say, I know this person. This is like that. As we will speak about these narrations, the purpose of those narrations were major events will happen till before the hour. Amongst the major events definitely is these events also. As you will see it, you must look for it and you must recognize it. And when you see a fitna, then it must just not be, I saw the fitna. Like there are some people who say, I saw the Dajjal, or I saw the sign of the Dajjal. And you ask him where you saw him. I saw him in the movie. Before the movie started, that one eye came, and it showed me one eye. He said, I saw it. I said, what you did after that? He said, I watched the movie. So that wasn't the purpose of seeing it. The purpose of seeing it was see that if I'm the Dajjal, you're not supposed to be alive. The man who sees him, he has to pull back. He can't go for the hug. And to say that I know it's you, let's hug now. The person who sees it must say that this is fitan. And then to be truthful and not to be a liar. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala give it to all of us, that we come out of this imtihan as as-sadiqeen, from the people who are truthful. It is not easy, but whoever Allah Tabarak Ta'ala makes fadl on, that person comes. As you are studying in your alim course, do one thing. Daily after salah, once a day, after every salah, don't think that your ilm is the main thing. So you put up your hands and you say, oh Allah, please accept me for your deen. Because there are many that studied, but they also fell. Many of them in their ilm, they were used for the shayateen. Because the shayateen also needs a lovely tongue, and he needs the people of knowledge. There were those people who were brought in front of the people of evil. When the whole fitna was exposed and they were asked, who started it? They said, people of knowledge. So one dua to save, and at the time of fitna, obviously the people of knowledge will be targeted. So one dua is that, oh Allah, accept me for the khidmat of your deen. One is use me for the khidmat, that itself not enough. One is I'm used for evil, miftah li-shar, that is terrible. One is I get accepted for your deen. Accept me for the khidmat of your deen. In this dua, there is protection from many fitan. There is to be utilized in the good, to be accepted in what you are utilized for. So once a day, at least lift up your hand and make this dua, oh Allah, accept me for the khidmat of your deen. Allah Tabarak accept all of us in His kindness. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.